Well, good morning, everyone. Has everybody had a very nice summer? We'll talk more about that in a bit. Welcome to our congregation. As you know, we're the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lower Bucks. And I'm Bill Stroop, and I'm your lay leader for today's service. Thanks for choosing to join us today. Our community is built on love, connection, and acceptance for all. Our goal is to strengthen your personal and spiritual journey through today's message in word and song. And let me just, a little aside, if you notice that our wonderful musician, Avi, will not be with us today. So we will see him on the screen, but he won't be here in person. So that is one little change. Today is the first Sunday of a new church year. I hope you had a rejuvenating summer filled with sunny days and joyful experiences. Many have been busy behind the scenes over the summer preparing for our reconnection through these Sunday services and other opportunities. In particular, we showed up when needed by contributing $991 to United Way's Stuff the Bus campaign over the summer. I wish I had known it was at $991 because I'd have put the extra $9 in it because I think $1,000 sounds a little better than $991. But so we assembled backpacks for those kids in need. So that was a big thing, and we made a major contribution to that. Thanks all who volunteered and contributed. And now I invite you to enjoy this time together. Our September theme this year is Soul Matters. The Soul Matters theme is the practice of invitation. And you're going to say, well, what does that mean? Well, we're going to be finding out over this month. Our faith is a lived faith that inspires us to act, love, and live our values out in the world. Each of this year's monthly themes, sourced from a new resource called Soul Matters, is a way for us to connect to our new UU core values of liberating love. For September, the theme is the practice of invitation. So whether it is the invitation to return, the invitation to share diverse sources of renewal, or the invitation to change, this month's inspiration is the invitation to embody liberating love in our daily lives. Now, as you all already know, if you looked up here, our speaker today is the Reverend Libby Smith, who's right here. We are so happy that she is with us once again, and I think it's become a tradition that our first service of the new church year, Libby is here. And I think I've done this too several times, in the first time back. Reverend Smith really needs no introduction since we've had the honor of her service as our minister from 2007 to 2013. Now retired, she returns periodically as our guest speaker, providing us with many stimulating and inspiring messages. Her sermon title today is Welcoming the New. Libby reminds us that last spring she left us with the challenge of knowing how much is enough and finding ways to let go of stuff we really don't need. Oh, and let me just a little, don't bring any more recycling materials as we have in this past couple of years. They will no longer be collected in the cafeteria. Now we can look together at the practice of invitation, because when our lives are less crowded, less filled with stuff and things, we have more room to welcome new and unexpected possibilities. Our musical prelude is hymn number 361, enter, rejoice, and come in, as a way of invitation, I'm sure. I think it's going to work.
Please join me in Enter, Rejoice, and Come In,
And on your
hymn
seats,
number
I think
361 to start off our service today. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
I should have asked you all to stand up when we could put our bodies into that wonderful welcoming song. I'd like to invite Jeff Ellis to come up as we light our chalice this Sunday morning. We gather this morning on the brink of a new congregational year. Some of us come fresh from summer adventures, from wind and waves and sunshine. Some of us come broken down from summer losses, from tears and pain and heartache. Some of us come renewed from summer rest, from peace and solitude and contemplation. Some of us come wearied from summer monotony, from work and heat and rain and sameness. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your gifts and needs you bring, you're welcome here. That's by Reverend Allison Palm. Please welcome Libby for our message for all ages. Oops.
It's great to be back. I found this great story for this morning. It's called The Creature of Habit. Now, I'm not going to try to show all the pictures because they're hard to make out anyway, and from a distance they would be impossible. But there are a lot of different things to imagine as you listen, so I hope you'll be able to create the pictures in your own mind as you listen to the story. But it might help to know that this is what our creature looks like. And he lives on an island, the island of Habit. On the island of Habit, there lived a creature. He had very big teeth, and very big eyes, and very, very big feet. Every day, the creature did the exact same things in the exact same order. First, he ate 3 pineapples and 2 bananas every morning. Then he walked down to the water to say hello to the fish. Hello, fish! After that, he went looking for shells, but he only kept the very best ones. Next, he said hello to the trees. Hello, trees! And the rocks. Hello, rocks! And to the crab who lived under the rocks. Hello, crab! When it was time for dinner, he ate 3 more pineapples and 2 more bananas. Then he brushed his teeth and went to bed. Every day was exactly the same, which was just how the creature liked it. Then one morning, he spotted a boat. It was a very small boat, and it was carrying a very small creature. He had very small teeth. He had very small eyes and very, very small feet. Nobody had ever visited the island before, and the very big creature couldn't wait to show his new friend how everything worked. He taught him how to collect pineapples and bananas and how to say hello to the fish. Hello, fish! He showed him how to find all the very best shells and when to eat his dinner and brush his teeth and go to bed. And the next morning, the very big creature woke up excited to do it all over again, just like he did every day. But the very small creature was nowhere to be found. When he finally appeared, he was excited to start the day too, only instead of eating 3 pineapples and 2 bananas, he ate a single coconut. And instead of saying hello to the fish, he went swimming with them. And instead of collecting shells, he collected, well, everything else he found on the beach. When it got dark, the very small creature didn't eat dinner, or brush his teeth, or go to bed. He just sat on the beach and looked at the stars. Watching him, the very big creature's very big eye began to twitch. This wasn't how things were done on the island. On the island of habit, there was supposed to be a schedule, a routine, an order to things. Otherwise, anything could happen. For the next week, the very big creature kept a very close eye on the very small creature. Some days, the very small creature made sandcastles after breakfast, and some days he stood on his head before dinner. Some days he slept in, and some days he stayed up late, and some days he did nothing at all. It was absolute madness. You can see our creature is really distressed. Then one morning, as the very big creature was eating his breakfast, the very small creature offered him an orange. The very big creature looked at it carefully. It was smaller than a pineapple. It was rounder than a banana. It was something he'd never tried before. And it was pretty good, but not as good as a pineapple. Afterwards, he noticed the very small creature saying hello to the clouds. Now, the very big creature had said hello to a lot of things, the trees and the rocks and the fish and the crab who lived under the rocks, but never the clouds. He thought about giving it a try, but he didn't want to miss his appointment with the fish. Later, the very small creature found some treasures on the beach, and even though he was meant to be looking for shells, the very big creature was secretly happy when he found a treasure too. The day was almost done. It was time to eat dinner and brush their teeth and go to bed. But the very small creature had other plans. The very big creature watched him go, thinking about all the unusual things that had happened that day. The orange, and the clouds, and the treasure on the beach. The very big creature sat down, and then he stood up again. His big heart was beating very, very fast. And finally, he decided to follow the very small creature. The very big creature had never been outside at this hour before. Everything looked different. The sky was full of color. Because what was happening? After dinner, you go outside, what do you see? Sunset. The sky was full of color, and the sun, as round as an orange, was disappearing into the water. He knew this wasn't where he was supposed to be right now. But as the world turned from pink to orange to purple all around him, he wondered if maybe it actually was. Later, they would eat dinner and brush their teeth and go to bed. And tomorrow there would be time to stick to the schedule, if they wanted to. After all, anything could happen. But for now, the sky was beginning to perform yet another magic trick. And together they sat and watched it change and said, "Hello, stars." Sometimes it's really great to know exactly what to expect. And sometimes it's really fun to have new things happen that you didn't expect. So that story is just a reminder to think about how you know which time is which. And now I think we're going to sing as our kids head off for children's activities. Go now in peace, go now in peace.
Please join me in singing.
May the love of God surround you every.
Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the
I didn't know we had Avi for that one. Well, I think they know we want them to go in peace. So since I had a rather long story this morning, I have only a very short reading. This comes from Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen's book, Kitchen Table Wisdom. Some of you may be familiar with it. She writes, "It is natural, even instinctive, to prefer comfort to pain, to prefer the familiar to the unknown. But sometimes our instincts are not wise. Life usually offers us far more than our biases and prejudices will allow us to have. Beyond comfort lie grace, mystery, and adventure. We may need to let go of our beliefs and ideas about life in order to have life."
Thank you, Libby. Now is the time for our offertory and September's shared plate recipient. And I like shared plate recipient. We've been saying split plate, but split or shared. Each Sunday, half of our collection is donated to an organization. And this month in September, that group will be World Central Kitchen. Oh, he's right up there. You may have seen them on 60 Minutes, and they were very active in Puerto Rico, is one thing that I remember. And they have provided more than 300 million. Can you believe that? 300 million. I don't know how they're keeping track of it. Nourishing meals for communities around the world. And I know they're active in Ukraine, and I believe in trying to be in Hamas. Your donation today will be used to support their emergency food relief efforts. Please donate generously, and as always, give with your heart. Thank you. Avi will now perform the musical interlude, Feeling Good by Nina Simone, written by Nina Simone.
high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Reeds drifting by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on the tree, you know how I feel. This old world is a new world and a bold world for me, and I'm feeling good. Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good.
Thank you, Avi. And that was something different from Avi. A new dawn, a new day, a new beginning. Let's welcome back Reverend Libby for her sermon, Welcoming the New.
It's very rare that I would contradict or correct Avi in any way, but I just do need to say that that song was not written by Nina Simone. She's one of the people who made it famous, but it was written by Anthony Newley and Leslie Bricusse for a Broadway musical in 1964 called The Roar of the Grease Paint, The Smell of the Crowd. So just to set the record straight, because I believe in credit where credit is due, and I happen to have been in that musical when I was a kid, so know it well. So here we are, at the start of a new church year. And for those of us who have tended, for one reason or another, to live our lives on an academic sort of calendar for as long as we can remember, the rhythms of the season have this very natural sense of new beginnings in September. And whether you're here in the room with us or whether you're joining us on Zoom, whether you're checking us out for the first time or whether you've been part of this congregation for many years, welcome. For all of us, I hope this is a space where we can learn and grow and explore together. Now, as Bill mentioned, our new year includes a new set of monthly themes, this year drawn from the Soul Matters Sharing Circle program, and they all center around practicing various elements of our faith. The practice of invitation, the practice of deep listening, the practice of repair. This emphasis on active faith goes way back in our tradition, and I had to dig back through my files to try to find the exact quotation that I wanted, but I did find it. The 19th century Universalist preacher Hosea Ballou once said, "There is one inevitable criterion touching matters of religious faith. Can you reduce it to practice? If not, have none of it. From the early days of our faith, we've understood that a primary purpose of religion is to teach us how we should live. And the goal of that living is a better world, not just better for ourselves, but better for everyone who shares the world that we share. More thoughtful, more just, more loving. It's not enough for religion to talk about these things. It has to help us do them, live them. If we can't reduce it to practice, if we can't boil it down to its essence and actually live it out in our day-to-day lives, then it's useless. We don't just study or believe or talk about our faith. We have to embody it. Religion is practice. And sometimes that feels daunting to me, that call to always be living the things that I say I believe. It's, of course, a challenge. Our goals should always be something that challenges, that should be aspirational, as we say in modern talk. But what helps me with that is that built into the concept of practice is the understanding that we're not expected to be perfect. If you're perfect, you don't have to practice, right? We're always learning. In one of the books that I read on Buddhist meditation, I remember the author pointing out, we call it a meditation practice for a reason. There's never a performance. We're not perfect. We just keep practicing. We practice in order to learn and improve. It's the same idea whether we're practicing meditation or practicing the piano or practicing our fastball, right? Why did that come out sounding funny? I've been doing nothing but watch baseball for the last 3 months. And I wish some of them were practicing a little harder, but that would be a separate sermon. We're actively doing something that we believe is valuable for its own sake. The practice is the point. We're not trying to get to perfection. So this month, we consider the practice of invitation. And to help us think about that, there are a lot of different ways we could think about what that means. This morning, I want to go back to the challenge I left you with in May, if you were here the last Sunday in May, when I talked about the value of letting go of stuff that we don't need and recognizing when we have enough. How do we know that we have enough? And I ended that sermon by asking, so how much is enough for you? Do the things you acquire help to fill you in healthy ways? Or are they attempts to satisfy a hunger that is really about something else? Would you feel better if you bought less and gave more? Do you want to introduce the idea of a no presents birthday or Christmas, with donations going to something you value? The question overarching all of these is, how much is enough, and how do you know when you get there? So essentially, I was inviting all of us to consider practicing simpler living. And now this fall, I want to take it a step further, because it led me to another question. Once we clear out some space in our life, then what? For years, I had a quotation tucked into a small picture frame that contained a picture of a dear friend and mentor of mine, the Reverend Carl Scoville. It was just something he happened to say to me once in the course of a conversation that I found particularly useful. And in thinking about this sermon, I wanted to quote him exactly. So I went back digging for that quotation too, and unfortunately that one I was not able to find. I found the picture, no longer in the frame, but the little slip of paper where I had written down his words was long gone. So I can only paraphrase Carl here. But the gist of what he said was this: if our hands are so occupied by holding on, how can we be ready to receive? This morning, I want to think about what we might receive if we learn to stop holding on so tightly, if we can learn to let some things go, if our lives are less crowded with all that stuff. When we make room in our lives, what are we making room for? Now, sometimes this is a very literal question, and in our household, the way it plays out most often in the literal sense is, if I clear out enough space on my bookshelf, I can buy more books. My husband and I both have a tendency to say we're going to keep getting rid of books, and then we see that empty space and we say, oh good, let's get more books. But when I preached about this in May, while I was being literal about getting rid of material possessions that we could let go of, it was not for the sake of making room for more and different possessions. It was about possessing less, paying attention to why we so often feel that more is better and why we're driven to accumulate things, how to recognize that so often we already have enough, and to realize that our obsession with material possessions can numb us to some of the more important dimensions of our lives. Because getting rid of things doesn't just free up physical space. It also frees up spiritual space, psychic space, if you will. I remember in college taking a drama class with a drama teacher named Tsai Chin. It turns out, I have learned since, she was quite a famous actress. She was the first Asian Bond girl, and she played one of, no, I'm not going to be able to remember. See me after when it will have come back to me, but a movie you will have all heard of, she had a primary part in, but I didn't know any of that at the time. But she was inspiring. And when we entered the classroom for this class, and it was just a big empty room with mats on the floor, because this was a class that did a lot of improv and movement exercises. So it was kind of like being in here, only not quite as big, and with the floor covered with black mats. And the first thing we had to do when we arrived was to take all of our belongings and place them in extremely neat, compact, well-ordered stacks along one wall of the very edge of the room. And she explained her insistence on this by telling us, when your external world is cluttered, then your internal world is cluttered. She wanted us to eliminate distractions. We learned to bring as little as possible with us to class, and to make what we did have to bring with us as inobtrusive as possible, so that we would feel open and ready to receive what waited for us in the creative process in that room. Now, this lesson for me goes far beyond clearing away physical clutter in my life, because I'm also weighed down by a lot of mental clutter that gets in the way of my openness. And I think many of us struggle with holding on to all kinds of intangible things that end up getting in the way and being obstructions. Anxieties, assumptions, expectations, opinions. And for a lot of us, these are harder to let go of than our material possessions. Our attitudes and our assumptions are so much a part of us that it can be hard sometimes to realize that it's even possible to let them go, that they might not be necessary parts of who we are. We bring them with us into every space we enter, and that makes it hard to feel open and ready to receive something new. I was so delighted when I found that story about the creature of habit, the island of habit, that is. I relate so powerfully to that creature. I don't know about you. I have my routines. I like things to go the way I expect them to go. I'm slow to invite new experiences into my life. I like the security of thinking that I know what to expect. This is true in even the smallest of ways, and it leads to significant rigidity if I'm not extremely careful to notice it. For example, if I think I know how my day is going to unfold on any given day, and then my husband, John, suggests doing something that wasn't in my mental image of how the day was going to unfold, my immediate reaction is negative. I've learned to stifle that reaction and say nothing until I have time to sit with it, think about it, and be more positive in my response, because otherwise, of course, he just feels slapped in the face. He suggested this lovely idea. I said, no, I don't want to do that. But even if I'm not planning to do anything in particular, the day has already taken a shape in my mind, and I am very slow to adapt to a change in that shape. So while the activity that he's suggesting might be interesting and appealing, far more interesting and appealing than anything else I would have thought of doing, it always takes me time to readjust my expectations and welcome a new possibility. My sister and I were talking about this last week because it's playing out in her life in a very concrete way right now. She has a small rental apartment as part of her home. And over the years, there have been a number of tenants who often only stay 1 or 2 years because they're in Ithaca, New York to do graduate work or a postdoc, and then they move on. Lots of them have been international studiers from around the world. Some of those tenants over time turned into really good friends. And one such former tenant, a woman from Italy with a teenage daughter, decided to return to the States for the fall semester this year to do some additional graduate work. But the apartment is already rented to someone else this year. So my sister invited the two of them to share her part of the house for the semester. Now, my sister has lived alone for a very long time. And her home is comfortable, but it's not all that large. And she is very much a person who has settled into her routines over the years. Lots of solitude, the ability to order her environment exactly the way she wants it. And now her quiet meditation space, where she would always sit with her cup of tea, is someone else's bedroom, shared by her friend and her friend's daughter. Her environment is no longer under her complete control. And she described the journey she's been on with this, saying she comes down in the morning still carrying, even though she knows things have changed, she's still carrying in her mind the old expectation of quiet solitude in the morning. And she comes downstairs, and Malou is already sitting at the kitchen table hard at work, which she can't do in the bedroom because her teenage daughter is still sleeping. And my sister has to adjust her expectations. And what I appreciated most about her description of this was the way she said, I come down and I see her there, and I say to myself, okay, this is different. Not bad, different. This is different. For me, that's the key to practicing invitation. We begin by letting go and creating some space. We stop holding on so tightly, we open our hands, ready to receive. We can open up to new possibilities and welcome changes and allow things to feel different. Because while our old ways and routines may feel safe and comfortable, they also limit and confine us. If my sister had not let go of some of her autonomy, she would have missed the chance to enjoy the companionship of sharing her home, which she is genuinely enjoying. Or to go back to our story, if we always insist on simply brushing our teeth and going to bed after supper, we'll never see the stars. But most of us, like the creature in our story, resist this process. We cling to our old expectations and our old ways of doing things because it feels so safe. Knowing what to expect gives us a sense of security. Never mind that it's really false security because we don't ever really know what to expect. But we can often kid ourselves that we do and sustain that illusion over sometimes a very long period of time. Change is usually uncomfortable, even when we know it's in our own best interests. Different often doesn't feel so good, at least not at first. And sometimes not ever. But just as different isn't necessarily bad, neither is difficult. Difficult can actually be good, can be useful, can be growthful. It just takes more practice. Sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is to open up to some discomfort. As Rachel Naomi Remen put it, beyond comfort, lie grace, mystery, and adventure. We may need to let go of our beliefs and ideas about life in order to have life. She was writing in the context of illness and mortality and opening up to the discomfort and pain that come with serious illness. But I think the lesson applies throughout any stage of our lives. Our beliefs and our ideas, so fiercely held and defended, can get in the way of living our lives more fully. And I think a lot about this in congregations, too. Because congregations, like individual people, have their expectations and their assumptions that get in the way of practicing invitation. We know how we do things here, right? We have our ways. And when new people come in with new ideas and new styles and new ways of doing things, it's very easy for our initial reaction to be discomfort and therefore resistance. It might be expectations about our worship style, or what people wear, or what kind of accent they have, or what kind of music they like, or how they do or don't have their children behave. I remember when the gray hymnal, which we don't even now put out because things have changed again and we don't need the actual tangible hymnals on our seats, but that old gray hymnal, listen to me, the old gray hymnal, to me it's still the new hymnal, because I grew up with the old blue hymnal. The gray hymnal came out in 1993, which means it's now more than 30 years old, which is astonishing to me. But when it first came out, it had a lot of new songs. It was missing a lot of old songs. Some of the old songs were there, but with new words. There were a lot of changes, and not everybody was happy. And in a workshop I attended somewhere, I remember a music director talking about being willing to be uncomfortable with some of the new styles of music, because that music might be exactly what someone else needs to hear in order to feel at home. She said, sometimes a song might not appeal to you, but you can still be glad that someone else in the family is being fed. That's a practice of invitation. Maybe the next one will feed you, but right now someone else is being fed, and isn't that wonderful? Welcoming things that are new and different, even when you don't love them, helps open the doors wider for someone else who might love those things. And you may find over time that you grow to love some of the new music, or the new ideas, or the new people, and that they enrich your life in ways you could not have imagined. And you may also find that with some of them, you never learn to like them, and you just sit and you wait for that hymn to be over. But I remember once going to the Unitarian congregation in York, Pennsylvania, and I was sitting next to my stepfather, who had been all his life a staunch Episcopalian until he married my mother, but theologically had really actually always been more of a Unitarian. And we sang this hymn, I won't name names, that I don't particularly like, and I think it's much too wordy, and it just strikes me as sort of all of what kind of makes me cringe a little bit sometimes about Unitarian Universalism. And I was thinking, oh, he's probably hating every minute of this. And we got to the end and he looked at me and he said, now that's a hymn. You never know what's going to touch someone's heart. About 5 years ago, in the Mennonite congregation where I'm a member, we voted to declare ourselves fully open and affirming to LGBTQ folks. We had done a partial job on this earlier, but we went a step further and added a welcome statement that made it very clear that our pastors would extend all of the privileges of membership to LGBTQ members, including weddings, child dedications, funerals, that they would be full members in good standing with all of the rights and privileges of any other member. Now, our pastors, if they actually are challenged to do this, could be kicked out of their ministries because the denomination does not yet consider this acceptable to marry same-sex couples. So that made the step, this final step, feel much more controversial because it put us at odds with our conference. It brought us under scrutiny. It took years of workshops and focus groups and storytelling and conversations before we put it to a vote, but ultimately the vote was unanimous. And one older and more conservative member spoke up and acknowledged that he still felt very uncomfortable about it. But he also believed that the church was doing the right thing to widen its welcome. And that, for me, was a perfect example of practicing invitation even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable. And I hope and trust that his willingness to sit with that discomfort will ultimately allow him both personally to experience the richness that comes with a more diverse congregation, and also to experience the joy of knowing that he has allowed someone else to feel more fully at home. That he has invited that into his own life, and also that he has invited someone else into the community. So this morning, I leave you with a new set of questions. On a personal level, this is not a raise your hand and answer it now question, but for your own personal self, what are you holding on to that's taking up too much space in your life and getting in the way of new possibilities? What do you need to let go of? What expectations or judgments or fears or assumptions do you need to let go of to be open to new possibilities? And what might be waiting to enter that space if you invite it in? And then as a congregation, as you think about growth and the changes that come with it, what do you need to let go of as a congregation to make room for the new? When new people with new ideas and new ways of thinking come in, how do you learn to let go of the automatic reactions and to instead pause and say, this is different? And remember that different might not be bad. In fact, might have the potential to be wonderful. So I look forward to exploring these practices with you throughout the year.
Well, there's something to think about. I had a thought while Libby was giving that wonderful sermon. If I had the power, I would clone Libby many times so that we could all meet with her in our head, perhaps, on a weekly basis, and she could provide the way, the answer, and the guidance for us. But I can't do that, so we're going to have to come here when she's here and pay very particular attention and then put it into practice, because it's one thing to hear all of this, the other is to begin to do it. So I want to thank you, Libby, for being our guide and life coach today. Thank you. A great way to start off our new church year. So now is the time in our service when we recognize and lift up one another in love and support. Please come up to this mic and share your joy or sorrow, your concern, and please be brief. One at a time.
I'd like to lift up my brother Doug and his partner Jessica, who has MS. They were in New York City and she fell and broke a hip. And it has been a week that they've been stuck there at the hospital because the arrangements for getting her transferred back to York, Pennsylvania for rehab have been very challenging. So it's just been a really tough situation, and he sounded pretty frazzled when I talked to him yesterday. So Doug and Jessica for healing and peace.
Hi, I'm Nancy Harvin, and I just want to say my thoughts are with Avi, who was supposed to be with us today, but he's sick and recovering, and he provided the music for us anyways, which God bless that boy. for always being there for us, and we're really still enjoying him even though he's not here, and our thoughts are out to hopefully he heals well.
Uh-oh, I wonder what this is.
I was interested to hear, Dr. Pelosi, I was interested to hear Libby say the date of the new Gray hymnal when it came out. That year we went to General Assembly, which I'm very disappointed now that they seem to be online rather than in person, because it was a wonderful, uplifting experience to go to General Assembly. But that year, they were introducing the new hymnal at General Assembly. And Bill and I were late getting to that particular assembly that they were having to introduce it. And so, typical of churches, we had to sit in the front row of that auditorium. And then we got our picture on the front page, on the front cover of the UU World.
I want everybody to keep in their hearts a little bit for the Applegates. Jim and Priscilla's, well, Jim's father just passed away.
Last call. I was hoping that Avi would have been here today because many of you may know, because you follow Avi on Facebook, that the film that is out about his grandfather has been nominated for an Emmy. I believe it's Emmy, is that right? And so let's stay tuned to that and hope that when we have our musician back, we can say the Emmy award-winning person is here with us. If not, we're just going to say Emmy nominated and let it go at that. Whether or not you share today for your joys, we in this community join you in celebration. For any sorrows or concerns, may you feel our sympathy and compassion. Let us sing, and will this be Spirit of Life?
Please join me in singing number hymn 123, Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Please now join with me in our responsive reading for this morning. There we go. Let's be the welcome we crave. Let's embody radical welcome. Let's be the welcome we crave. Let's be the welcome we crave. Let us embody the community we crave. Our closing song, and you can stand as you're willing and able, Free to Be You and Me, a song that takes Nancy and I back to when we had little girls, and this is a very big part of their lives, singing this song. And the words are on your...
There is a land that I see where the children are free, and I say it ain't far to this land from where we are. Take my hand, come with me, where the children are free. Come with me, take my hand, and we'll live in a land where the river runs free, in a land through the green country, in a land to the shining sea, and you and me are free to be you and me. I see a land bright and clear, and the time's coming near when we live in this land, you and me, hand in hand. Come along, take my hand, lend your voice to my song. Come along, take my hand, sing a song for a land where the river runs free, for a land through the green country, for a land to the shining sea, and you and me are free to be you and me. Come along, sing a song, lend your voice to my song. Come along, take my hand, sing a song for a land where the river runs free, to a land through the green country, to a land to a shining sea, to a land where the horses run free, to a land where the children are free, and you and me are free to be you and me, and you and me are free to be you and me, and you and me are free to be you and me, and you and me are free to be you and me.
As we got me there. As we extinguish our chalice, may you leave this time together changed. May you share that feeling of transformation wherever you go. May it spread into every word, deed, thought, and interaction. Our service is concluded. For those of you on Zoom, thanks for joining us today. We hope to see you again next week. In the meantime, I would like to thank Reverend Libby Smith for a wonderful sermon today. Thank you, Libby. For all who are here, please join us in the cafeteria for coffee, fellowship, conversation, and I think a very special cake. So go now in peace. Amen, and blessed be.
Nice job as always, Bill. How was your health?